I woke up to sunlight brushing against the blinds, a soft glow casting stripes across the comforter. For once, my chest didn't feel heavy. There was no creeping dread, no anxious churning. Just hope. It was engagement day, the day everything was supposed to turn around. The house was quiet, a silence that felt sacred, like the calm before something breaks. I stood in the kitchen barefoot, sipping coffee that had gone lukewarm in my hand, thinking of something my dad once told me. Every family has a storm hiding in the teacup. I never knew what he meant until years later. Sacramento had its fall chill that morning, the kind that made your bones ache a little, but kept the air crisp. My phone rang. A call from his mother, Gloria. Her tone, as usual, was clipped, cordial, not warm. "We have things to discuss before the celebration," she said, and that was it. Not a good morning, not a congratulations, just a summons. I brushed it off. Today was too important to let anything ruin it. Growing up as the youngest of three girls, you learn early that your voice is the softest in the room. My sisters were the assertive ones, always getting their way in family decisions. I was the listener, the peacemaker. But it gave me something else, patience. And people forget, patient doesn't mean passive. I met Adam during a volunteer event 2 years ago. He was different, steady, grounded. His parents, though, Gloria was the kind of woman who made you feel like you were always auditioning for her approval. She'd compliment you in ways that made your skin crawl. During our third dinner together, she'd jokingly asked if I'd be changing my last name for the brand. That wasn't a joke. And her suggestions for the wedding had started sounding more like executive orders. Still, Adam kept saying, "That's just how she is," and I kept trying to believe him. The engagement party was at a local community hall. Nothing fancy, just warm lights, handmade centerpieces, and photos from when Adam and I were kids. It felt personal, real. My sister cracked a joke as we set up the dessert table, and for a moment, I was just a girl with her family about to celebrate a new chapter. Then she arrived. Gloria, in designer heels and a trench coat that probably cost more than the venue rental. With her came two women I'd never seen before, all pearls and pursed lips. They didn't greet anyone. They assessed, judged, and then proceeded to rearrange the seating. Gloria waved off the staff like she was managing a gala, not her son's engagement party. "This tablecloth clashes with her skin tone," she whispered to one friend, loud enough for me to hear. I didn't flinch. Not on the outside. She eyed my dress, a vintage cream piece I'd gotten from a thrift store I loved. "That's brave," she muttered. I smiled. Didn't give her the satisfaction of reacting. Guests started arriving, the room filling with the kind of warmth you hope family brings. Laughter, clinks of glasses, hugs. I was mid-conversation with my uncle when Gloria raised her voice. "I'd like to say a few words," she announced, already halfway to the front. People quieted. She beamed, the light catching her diamond earrings. "We're so proud of Adam. He's chosen a dependable woman." I blinked. She has a steady job, a reliable income, qualities that matter in a marriage. And since she'll soon be part of our family, it's only fair her salary comes into our family trust. The room froze. My ears rang. My fingers went numb. Did she just? No one spoke. Not Adam. Not my parents. Just silence, like the air had thickened and no one knew how to move through it. I looked around, searching for something. Anyone. Adam stared at his shoes. In that moment, I wasn't a grown woman standing in front of her family. I was 10 again, at my cousin's birthday, watching my parents give away the camera I saved months to buy. "He needs it more than you." Always expected to give, to bend. Gloria smiled wider, thinking she'd done something generous. My stomach twisted, my hands shook. "Say something," I told myself, but every thought collided. If I stood up now, would I ruin everything? Embarrass my family? Prove her point that I wasn't polished enough? I turned and walked toward the restroom. Inside, I gripped the sink like it might float me out of there. My vision blurred. The tiled floor wavered beneath my heels. Then I saw movement in the mirror behind me. I wasn't alone. There was someone waiting. And what she said next changed everything. I didn't hear the door close behind me. I was still gripping the edge of the sink like it might hold my spine in place. The tears hadn't fallen yet, but my throat had tightened. Dry, aching. The kind of ache that doesn't scream, just hums beneath the surface, steady and cruel. Then I saw her, Romy. She stepped forward slowly, as if not to startle me. Romy wasn't family. Not really. She was someone I'd seen a handful of times over the years at distant gatherings. Someone who'd worked briefly with Adam's father's estate team. She was always quiet, polite, but now her face looked urgent. She didn't speak right away, just held out a folded piece of paper. "You need to see this before you make any decisions," she said, voice low. Her eyes flicked toward the door, then back to mine. It didn't feel like a conversation. It felt like confession, whispered through a crack in the wall, meant only for ears that were finally ready to hear. I took the paper with hands that weren't quite steady. It was thick, the folds creased sharp, deliberate. And then she left. No hug, no explanation, just a glance that said, "Be careful," and the quiet thud of the door behind her. I waited until her footsteps faded, then unfolded the note. Bank transfers, email headers, dates, a pattern. It didn't make sense all at once, not clearly, but enough to send a jolt through my chest. Each line listed a different movement of money, names I recognized, including mine. My name tied to accounts I hadn't touched, and at the bottom, a sentence, scrawled in tight, anxious handwriting. "She's been planning this since March." I felt dizzy. I left the restroom and walked down the hallway, away from the hum of voices. My heels clicked softly on the tiles, the sound far too loud in the silence. There was a small bench near the side entrance, and I sat down. The paper shook in my hand. Months before the engagement. That's when this started. My name listed under proposed trust allocation. My employer's name next to numbers I didn't authorize. The pieces didn't lock in yet, but the edges were sharp enough to cut. Suddenly, her words, the ones I'd brushed off, came back like echoes. "When you're part of us, everything you earn benefits the legacy." At the time, I thought it was just her usual nonsense, her way of sounding noble while flexing control. But now, this wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a mistake. This was strategy. And Adam? Had he known? That thought was the sharpest. Because if he had even an idea and said nothing, I folded the paper again, tighter this time. My breath had slowed, but my stomach wouldn't settle. I wasn't hurt now, not exactly. I was watching the edges of something unravel, and inside me, something else had begun to knot. Back at the venue, I kept my smile light, my shoulders relaxed. Nobody needed to know what I carried in my purse now. I leaned toward Adam, brushing imaginary lint off his lapel. "You looked surprised earlier," I said. He chuckled nervously. "Yeah, Mom she has her moments." I smiled back. "I hope there aren't too many surprises waiting in marriage." His face froze, just for a second. I also noticed Gloria whispering to her friend near the buffet, both of them glancing my way like I was a topic on a chalkboard. "She won't know until it's too late," I heard. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. I felt heat crawl up my neck. I didn't flinch, didn't turn, didn't let the smile crack. My mother once told me, "Never show your hand before you're ready to play your card." I didn't understand it as a girl. Now it felt like armor. I walked to the side hallway, pulled out my phone, and texted Jamie, my old college friend who now handled estate law. Nothing heavy. Just a casual, "Hey, quick cue, what do you know about family trusts and incoming spouses?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. She was typing. I took photos of the document, backed them up to a secure folder, and added a passcode. They thought I was soft, and I let them, because silence gives you space to plan. I walked back into the main room, smiled at guests, accepted compliments, posed for a few more photos. I laughed once or twice. From the outside, I looked like a woman surrounded by love. But my eyes were working, studying, memorizing, watching. The server approached with a tray of drinks. I thanked him, reached for a glass, and felt the paper tucked beneath the base. A napkin. Folded once. Inside. A message. Handwritten. It's worse than you think. Meet me in the garden at midnight. I looked up instinctively, scanning faces, trying to find someone watching me, but no one was. Or they were pretending not to. I read the note again. Then folded it slowly, tucking it into my sleeve. I was no longer just a bride-to-be. I had just stepped into a chess game I didn't know I was playing. The last of the music had faded. Chairs sat askew, guests filtered out in clusters of tired smiles and polite goodnights, and inside the venue, the lights softened into a dull amber haze. I waited near the kitchen doors, pretending to check my phone, counting the seconds. Then I slipped out. The garden behind the community hall was dim. A few string lights still glowed overhead, swaying gently in the breeze, casting long, crooked shadows across the gravel path. The scent of lilac and something earthy hovered in the air, comforting and foreboding all at once. Romy was waiting near the trellis. Her coat was wrapped tightly around her, one hand tucked into the crook of her elbow, the other holding a flash drive. She didn't smile when she saw me, just nodded. "You came," she said quietly, almost like she wasn't sure I would. "I read the note," she exhaled through her nose. "Okay, then I need to tell you something that might shift how you see all this." I didn't speak. Just listened. She looked around, then stepped closer, voice low. "Your name, it's already on an investment account. A joint one. With your social security number, your work credentials. I saw it a few months ago when I was helping audit some of the family holdings. At first, I thought maybe you'd set it up. But then I saw the dates, the transfers, all timed to land the month before Gideon proposed." I stared at her. No words. Not yet. Romy hesitated. "I didn't know what to do. Your fiancé's family runs deep, you know that. But when I saw what happened today, out there, I knew staying quiet made me complicit." She handed me the flash drive. "There are screenshots, PDF copies, paper records, and backups. I kept extras." The weight of it dropped into my gut like a stone. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a conversation that spiraled too far. This was theft, done quietly, dressed up in polite dinners and heirloom pearls. "They opened an account. In my name?" "Yes. Without your permission. It's not just shady. It's illegal." I nodded, numb. My throat tightened again, but not from sadness this time. The ache was colder now. Cleaner. "Why?" I asked. She looked at me, pity in her eyes. "Because they planned to make it seem like it was always mutual, like you agreed. The paper trail will show you benefited from the trust, even if you didn't know about it." I looked down at the flash drive. My reflection in the silver plastic was warped, unfamiliar. "This wasn't a request," I whispered. "It was a theft dressed in tradition." Later, I stood at the edge of the parking lot and called Ms. Dobbins. She answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. "It's late, honey." "I know. I'm sorry. Do you remember that old lemon pie recipe you said was missing an ingredient?" Silence. Then, "Who else is in the kitchen?" "No one." I checked the pantry. "And the locks." She took a breath. "They're grooming you, baby, financially. If you don't reclaim your narrative now, they'll rewrite it for you and call it a gift." That was all I needed. I thanked her, hung up, and copied every file Romy gave me into 3 separate folders, stored across different encrypted drives. Labeled, dated, backed up. Then I emailed one to myself under a nondescript title, just in case. This was no longer about damage control. This was about control, period. When I walked back into the main room, Gideon was by the cake table, chatting with his uncle. He looked up and smiled, walked over, draping his arm around my shoulders. "You disappeared." "Needed air." He kissed my temple. "Everything okay?" "Why wouldn't it be?" He chuckled. "You're just tense. Don't worry. Mom's just used to handling things for the family. She means well." That did it. He knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. He knew. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Now I was watching him too. Upstairs, the house was quiet. I moved slowly down the hallway, the carpet soft beneath my feet. The room Gloria was using had a thin sliver of light spilling out from beneath the door. I wasn't going to listen, but I stopped, and then I heard my name, followed by low laughter. She'll thank us eventually. No guilt, just certainty, like she truly believed her violation of me was some noble act of protection. I stepped back, quietly, 1 foot at a time. The most dangerous people aren't the ones who hate you. They're the ones who believe they're helping you, while they steal what's yours. I stepped back into the hall and felt like I had walked through a veil. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the hum of conversations, they all sounded distant, as though I were standing behind a pane of glass, watching life go on without me. Gideon caught my eye from across the room. His expression flickered with regret before he looked away. I refused to meet his gaze. Gloria sat at the head table, posture rigid, like a queen watching subjects move around her. In earlier visits, I'd noticed how she directed the flow of conversations, shifting compliments, redirecting focus. And now it felt methodical, a constant filtering. Rami stood up unexpectedly. The room quieted as she raised her glass. "Let us toast," she said quietly but clearly, "to families built on respect, not control." A hush fell. All eyes drifted to her, then to Gloria, scowling. She tried to laugh it off. "Just a sentiment," she said, but the damage was done. The attention had moved. Subtle looks of confusion, curiosity, a crack in the facade. The air felt charged. Gloria forced applause, but her eyes darted to me, sharp and accusing. Gideon stiffened next to me. I saw him glance from his mother to me, conflict in his eyes. Gloria murmured something to him. "We can't let her think she's equal." The words landed like icy water in my veins. I plastered a casual smile on my face, but behind it my skin felt taut, ready to snap. She thinks she played me. She hasn't seen what I'm capable of yet. Later, Gloria called me aside, pulling me away under the guise of concern. In the quiet corridor, she spoke low. "Don't embarrass our family. There are consequences." She offered me a deal. Partial control over some wedding elements with her help over finances. Her tone was soft, but it felt like poison. I looked her in the eye. "I don't negotiate dignity," I said. She sneered. "You think you have choices?" I turned and walked away, my heart racing, her threat lingering in the cold air between us. Back at my seat, I checked my phone. A new video message. The screen played a hidden camera clip. Gloria, in a meeting, saying she'd take care of my earnings, speaking as though my income were hers to direct. My pulse thundered. I realized then, they watch me constantly, and grabbing control is no longer optional. They think they own me. They haven't even begun to learn who I am. I watched the video again, sitting alone in the dim light of my room, the glow from my phone the only thing cutting through the quiet. It played like a documentary I hadn't agreed to be in. Their voices didn't waver, didn't hesitate. Her voice, Octavia's, was the clearest. She's an asset we'll soon have full access to. Not a person, not a future daughter-in-law. An asset. I didn't cry. That had already passed. This wasn't sadness, it was something deeper, heavier, like being pulled underwater slowly while still awake. I whispered, "How did I not see this sooner?" And then I answered myself. Because I wanted to believe people like her didn't really exist outside of TV movies. Because I mistook being welcomed into the family as being accepted. Every "let me take care of that" was really "let me control you." I grabbed my notebook and started writing down every date, moment, phrase, each time money and decisions were gently pulled away from me. Connecting dots wasn't about revenge, it was survival. By morning, I hadn't slept. I came down to the kitchen where everything smelled like familiarity. Bacon, toast, her perfume. Gideon smiled, half awake. "You should eat. Big day, remember?" He poured orange juice into 2 glasses. Octavia handed me a plate, acting like nothing had ever happened. "You look pale, sweetheart. Rough night?" Just tired, I said. Gideon leaned against the counter. Hey, I was thinking, we could loop Mom in officially on the wedding finances, just to keep things simple. My hand froze over the napkin. I almost nodded, almost, but I saw that video again in my head. Her voice. I stood and stepped out to the garden. The cool air hit like a slap. I needed it. I needed to walk away before I gave away more than just money. The crunch of gravel under my shoes made me think of another time. Me at 10, sitting on our porch while my father yelled inside. My mom cried softly in the kitchen, and I stayed silent because I thought maybe that would fix it all, that maybe being quiet would keep everything from breaking apart. It didn't then. It wouldn't now. I pulled out my phone and called Ms. Dobbins. No small talk this time. I need the templates, the identity protection plan, all of it. I was hoping you'd say that, she said. Then I called HR. Had anyone tried to change my payroll? Was my retirement account secure? Everything checked out, but still, I reset every password. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every girl who'd marry into a family like this and think for a while she was lucky. A line came back to me. My old mentor, stern and clear-eyed. Boundaries don't ruin relationships. They reveal who's been benefiting from your lack of them. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to Gideon. I didn't vent or accuse. I laid out financial boundaries. No joint accounts. No third-party authorizations. No help from anyone. If he loved me, he'd respect the line. If not, I'd learn what side he was really on. That evening, I asked Octavia to meet me in the sitting room. She came with her usual fake warmth and wineglass in hand. What's all this about, honey? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't break eye contact. I know about the fake accounts, the video, everything. She didn't blink, just laughed. You're overreacting, sweetheart. You've misunderstood. I'm not joining your trust. I've documented everything. If you try anything else, I will involve the authorities. And the media, if I have to. She cocked her head, like I'd told a child's joke. Come on, you're too smart for this little drama. I used to think so, I said. I used to think being calm meant being safe. I don't anymore. Don't mistake my calm for compliance. Her smile flattened. There it was, the real face behind the mask. I left her standing there and went upstairs. Later that night, I refreshed my email, still too wired to sleep. One notification blinked at the top. Bank alert, attempted access to my savings account. The authorization was outdated, but the name? Octavia Whitlock. I didn't slam anything. I didn't shout. I just stared at the screen and let the stillness harden into something cold and final. I gave her one chance to step back, and she just walked right past it. I arrived before dawn. The hall was nearly silent, staff moving between tables, arranging florals, straightening linens. My shoes echoed in the foyer. I held my notebook tight, every twist, every moment to stay grounded. The confrontation from last night weighed heavily, but I needed clarity now. Gideon appeared beside me, smiling too broadly, eyes flicking away whenever I started to speak. He whispered, "You look tired," and I nodded. I didn't say what I was thinking. Yesterday changed everything. My muscles were taut, my pulse low, the calm before a storm. We gathered with vendors and family early, before guests spilled in. Octavia stood and praised her vision and guidance over the wedding. Logistics, decor, vendor contracts, many things I had handled, but she now claimed. The words landed like cold water over my head. I replied softly, recounting which elements I'd selected, which vendors I'd coordinated, which payments I'd arranged. She laughed as though I amused her. You're detail-oriented for someone so new here, she said, voice smooth. Under restrained poise, I felt a surge of indignation. I kept my face measured. I would not let her rewrite my work in front of every spectator. I pulled out my phone to bring up the hidden video evidence as proof, but nothing appeared. It was gone, deleted, suppressed. Panic took hold, confusion followed. I navigated to my backups, but access denied. Missing entries, corrupted files. My heart sank. I recalled Romy's warning. They have eyes everywhere. This was no accident. They erased it. They were trying to erase me again. Betrayal carved a new space inside me. Gideon asked for privacy to talk. Octavia left with a polite wave. I slipped into a quiet corner, dialing Ms. Dobbins. They removed the file, I said, voice low. Her response was calm. Step by step. Trace metadata. File recovery. Preserve legality. I gathered every trace I had. Emails, receipts, contracts. My notes became my armor. I drafted a speech to reclaim the narrative publicly. At midnight, I sneaked into the audio-visual room. A monitor flashed. Video upload failed. Permissions revoked. The system log showed Octavia Whitlock's credentials. My pulse hammered. I reached for a USB drive tucked in my pocket. As I pressed it toward the port, a shadow slipped behind me. I froze, breath shallow. They controlled lights, stage, guests. Now they control truth. But I still held the only key left. The morning light broke through the curtains like it was trying to remind me I was still here, still standing. I lay there for a moment, letting silence hold me. My phone buzzed. Notifications, whispers. People had seen something. The leaked video must have made it out for a moment before it was scrubbed. There were comments, questions, a few supportive messages buried under a pile of confusion. Then there was Gideon. "Are you okay? Let's talk privately," he wrote. I stared at that message longer than I should have, then replied, "Later?" Because I wasn't going to let them corner me in private again. Not today. By midday, the promotional materials for the wedding were up on every platform. The official website, press mentions, even florists and caterers, all carrying the same name. Creative Director, Octavia Whitlock. Every sentence carefully crafted to erase my fingerprint from the event. The details I poured myself into, the playlist, the layout, even the vendor selections, reattributed like I'd been her assistant. Not one mention of me, not one acknowledgement of the person who'd stayed up late redlining contracts and solving last-minute crises. Guests began walking up to her, offering congratulations, telling her how stunning it all was, how organized she must be. I stood there, invisible in my own spotlight. A few glanced at me, confused. Some looked embarrassed for not knowing. The sting was sharp, but it didn't draw blood. Not this time. By afternoon, a final vendor walkthrough was called. Octavia arrived 5 minutes late and took center stage like she owned it. Spoke with confidence, polished and poised, about her vision and how she navigated logistics through the chaos. I waited, then raised my hand. I didn't yell. I didn't break. I cited emails, dates, timestamps, attachments in my name. I listed contracts I personally negotiated, vendors I scouted. Her face barely flickered. "You're new here," she said. "I simply directed your vision." Gideon shifted in his seat, eyes darting between us. Silent, again. I was done waiting for someone to back me up. Before I could say more, the double doors opened, heads turned, and there he was. My father. Magnus stepped in, crisp folder in hand. I hadn't seen that man in nearly 5 years, but the moment he spoke, the air shifted. "This contract," he said, "was signed by your grandfather before he passed. It names Lyra as the sole stakeholder of this venue for any family occasion. That includes this wedding." Octavia's face lost its sheen. "This is absurd," she muttered. Gideon looked like he'd swallowed gravel. The room froze, and in that stillness, her empire cracked. Her words came low, nearly inaudible. "You will regret this." I didn't blink. "You already did." Inside, I could feel it. Not anger, not fear. It was something quieter, sharper. She thought she erased me. She didn't know she was writing my resurrection. I woke up before the alarm. Didn't need it. My body already knew this day wasn't going to let me rest. I sat on the edge of the bed, the silence pressing in from every corner. I looked at my notes, speech, documents, a printed copy of my backup vendor timeline. Everything lined up like tools laid out for surgery. I wasn't nervous, just heavy, like my soul was carrying something it had dragged too long. Gideon walked in, holding 2 mugs. "Babe, just breathe, all right? It's gonna be fine." I took the mug, didn't drink. "I'm breathing." He smiled like he believed it. I didn't. On social media, Octavia was posting like she'd already hosted the event of the century. "Grateful to be part of building this dream, for our family," the caption said. My face was in the photo, but the spotlight was all hers. By the time I arrived at the hall, even the vendors greeted me like a stranger. Polite smiles, quick glances toward her. I moved through the room like a ghost. Not angry, just done pretending. Then the moment came that cracked it all open. One of the flower girl's younger brothers, maybe 6 or 7, tugged at my sleeve during the engagement toast. He looked up at me, wide-eyed and innocent, and asked, "Why does your mom always get the credit, not you?" It was so simple, so pure, but it was like someone had shouted it into a megaphone. The entire room went quiet. Forks paused mid-air, a few nervous chuckles. Octavia let out a high, practiced laugh and said something about shared effort and blessing the next generation. But the heat rising to my ears wasn't from embarrassment, not this time. That little boy had said what I'd swallowed for months, years, even. I stood, calmly, deliberately. I'd like to say something. People turned. Some looked amused, others braced. I began listing the things I'd planned. Florals, playlist, vendor contracts, seating charts. I didn't accuse. I clarified, fact by fact. Octavia interrupted with a smirk. "Darling, you've been under a lot of pressure. No need to relive the stress." I nodded, took a breath. "Today, I will not be invisible." Gasps were small, ripples, but I could feel the current shifting. I pulled out my phone, held it up. Every detail I just named is backed by receipts, emails, texts. Gideon's eyes dropped to the floor. I turned toward the main table. Took off the ring. Slow, steady. "I can't go through with this wedding under these conditions." The room burst into motion. Whispers, gasps, a glass clinking in someone's nervous hand. Octavia's face went pale. I walked to the stage, placed the ring on the podium. My voice stayed level. I wanted love. What I found was control dressed up as tradition. Some guests nodded. Others exchanged scandalized glances, but I didn't care anymore. As I turned to leave the platform, I heard my name. A whisper. Urgent. Behind me, a screen flickered on. Someone had connected a drive. Clips began playing. Videos showing vendor meetings. Me speaking. Octavia in the background, mostly silent. Captions below listed timestamps, dates, files. All evidence. Undeniable. The entire hall watched. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Inside, I felt something click into place. Not rage, not revenge. Truth. I didn't just walk away from a wedding. I walked toward my truth. The morning after felt too quiet. I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by unpacked boxes labeled wedding. Ribbon scraps, glass flutes, a pair of ivory heels I never wore. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was hollow, like the breath held after a scream. I replayed the video from the night before, not the one they tried to bury, but the one that saved me. My voice, clear. My eyes, steady. Then the applause. Then the screen fading to black. I watched it 3 times before I turned the phone over and left it face down. Sometimes peace feels like the absence of noise. And pain. Not comfort. Not clarity. Just the first inhale after nearly drowning. Later that afternoon, Gideon's name lit up my screen. I almost ignored it. But curiosity won out. He wrote, "I'm sorry. I saw what they did. I saw it early. I just didn't want to rock the boat. I was scared. You didn't deserve that." I stared at that line. I was scared. For a long time. That wasn't love. That was fear hiding behind polite silence. I didn't want to be someone's second decision, not after they failed the first time it counted. I didn't reply. By evening, I had no plans, nowhere to go. I just needed to sit with myself, hear the weight of everything fall away. Then, a knock. At the door stood Gideon's aunt, Marion. She'd always been in the background, quiet, kind, barely noticed. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said. "I just felt like I needed to say something." I let her in. She sat gently, folded her hands, and said, "I watched what happened, and I know what it feels like." Her story unraveled slowly, how she'd once been in love with someone the family disapproved of, how Octavia, even then, had kept control through quiet humiliation. She told me how she gave in, stayed quiet, disappeared into obligation. Then she whispered something I didn't expect. "Octavia wasn't always like this. She was once in your shoes. Her husband's mother hated her, dismissed her. She fought, lost, and decided never to be powerless again. But she passed the cruelty forward. Pain passed down like heirlooms. I listened, but I didn't soften. Understanding doesn't mean accepting. Still, I thanked her for her honesty. That mattered. 2 days later, a floral arrangement arrived at my doorstep, all white orchids. A card tucked inside, handwritten, "I would like to talk. Please." I chose the cafe. Public, neutral. I arrived early, chose the seat facing the door. Octavia walked in with none of her usual fire. Her shoulders slumped, lips pressed thin. She didn't order anything, just sat, hands trembling slightly. "I've made mistakes," she said. "Terrible ones. I thought I was protecting my son. Our name, I was wrong." She pulled out a check, thick cardstock, 6 figures. "I know I can't undo the pain, but this is restitution." I looked at the check, then back at her. "You can't buy back respect." Or silence. Her eyes glistened, but I didn't feel power over her. Just peace inside me. I stood up, left the check on the table. "I'm not your enemy, but I'm also not your secret." She didn't follow me out. That night, I found myself walking past a community center. Something about it made me stop. I walked in, asked about mentorship programs for young women, career development, public speaking. They handed me a brochure, smiled like I'd already said yes. Maybe we go through these storms so we can light the way for someone else later. Back home, as I slipped off my coat, my phone buzzed. Unknown sender. A journalist from a major outlet had seen the viral clip, wanted to interview me, not about the wedding, but about speaking up, taking back a narrative. I stared at the screen. This story isn't ending. It's just beginning.